Hey y'all, it's Ali, and yeah, it's been a while. Life kinda did things, but I remade Spirit. Remember my first video on this, I mentioned how I actually wanted to buy a 3D printed base that cost around the same price as a Spirit Halloween mask? Well, I did it! Here she is on her remade glory. And today I want to talk about my process of furring a 3D base, as well as how it compares to refurbishing the Spirit mask. Jumping right into it, the first thing I did was buy a fox base from Resuprint 3D on Etsy. Though I should note that Mainface was the one who initially designed the base. After a look, I realized that, most shops on Etsy tend to sell the Mainface file. I did some research, as everyone should do before buying on Etsy, and Mainface does allow people to resell their files as long as proper credit is given. A quick note about the base before I go on, I got it on sale, so it was actually $43 after shipping, so almost $20 cheaper than Spirit Halloween masks. It looks like their normal pricing around this time of writing the script is closer to $75 though. It came with a set of eye blanks, teeth, eyelids, and even some elastic for the joint, but I ended up using some nuts and bolts again since the elastic alone made the jaw wiggle kinda funny. Compared to the 3D printed base to the Spirit Halloween mask, it is definitely sturdier. The plastic is a lot thicker and more rigid. You can see in the video that I'm squeezing the mask and the base, and I can promise you I'm using the same amount of force for both. In fact, here's me squeezing the 3D printed base with some actual force. You can see that it still doesn't bend as much as the mask. That's because the manufacturer for the Spirit Halloween mask probably used cheaper plastic that could be used with their machines. I'm theorizing they have a vacuum form setup, but I'm not entirely sure. Next up was prepping the head base. It was definitely easier than prepping the Spirit mask, that's for sure. I didn't have to pry cheap for brittle plastic. All I had to do was scruff it up with coarse sandpaper, or alternatively you could grab a properly fitted craft knife. Jesus Christ, Ali. And I wonder why I get cuts all over my hands. Anyway, take a blade to the plastic and just repeatedly scratch it in all directions. The goal is to add some grit so the hot glue can grip and secure the fur onto the head base better. Without it, it would just kind of peel off. Also, for the record, I used Gorilla Glue brand hot glue sticks on high heat for this project. For the inside, I started with patting the head out. I actually got a size up from what I recommended because I still want to wear glasses on the inside. I put big chunks of foam on the sides of the head, the forehead, and then later on I put a block in the bridge of the nose to push the face up more, and the chin rest. It was just a simple sheet of EVA foam with another block of foam on top, nothing fancy. I used some elastic and glued them onto the base as well so I could fit it onto my head. After I was done, I taped the head. One thing I really liked about the design is that there's a line going straight out the middle, so I was able to follow that guide instead of just hoping I did a good enough job of being centered. I make sure that I mark everything clearly, including color, location, and fur direction. And a side note, if you're like me and you usually make mistakes when marking fur out, use heat disappearing ink. That saves you. I usually trace them out and cut them out in a big piece with multiple pieces in one section. This is for a reason. This helps me get an even shape for all my pieces, since sometimes the shaver can shave unevenly around the edges sometimes. I make sure to cut my patterns as close as possible and save scraps for hair later after everything's cut out. I also took time to make a brand new pattern for the hood. Okay, look, fur is expensive and I'm not gonna wear 1.0 anytime soon, so I don't see the issue in reusing some of her old parts. I'm not cheap, shut up, it's my suit! Anyway, now that her face is all sewn, I can finally glue her face to the base. A lot of accidental rhyming in this video. And I gave a final shave, focusing on making the markings nice and clean. After the eyes were installed, I sewed her hair on, which again I stole from an old base. Lined the mouth, installed the teeth, and did a couple more finishing touches, and now I have Spirit 2.0! So, now that I've remade Spirit on a proper 3D printed head base, how does it compare to refurbishing a Spirit Halloween mask? Well, it's a lot easier, and I feel more confident this is going to last me a while. Like I said in my previous video, when I refurbished Spirit 1.0, I felt like she was going to snap and break at certain points. However, with the 3D printed head base, it felt very solid and sturdy. In terms of comfort, 2.0 is a lot more comfortable to wear than 1.0, but both aren't as comfortable as wearing a foam head though. And admittedly, I got a bit of a headache when I wore her for too long, but that could just be a side effect of the base being hard. I also need to play with her padding some more. I feel like I didn't get it quite right. This time I took people's advice and I shaved the fur down before putting it on the base, and helped a lot with accuracy when gluing the fur down. It also helped me get a cleaner final shave. This might be obvious to some people, but I do recommend buying a 3D printed headbase from someone before reaching for the Spirit Halloween mask. At least if your goal is to make a fursuit, or if your idea of remixing it involves skinning it in any way. Prep is easier, the base is sturdier, and overall you'll just end up with a better looking product. However, don't mistake me as me dissing Spirit masks. Like I said in my last video, they're perfectly fine for beginners or for fun. A simple shave, a brush, and some accessories to the Spirit mask can elevate the look if you really only have the $60 and don't want to even deal with furring the head. This fandom can be surprisingly elitist. I understand not wanting the fandom to get corporate and end up like anime cons where half the dealers are just dropshippers instead of actual artists. But you're not going to defeat capitalism by bullying a 15-year-old. All you're doing is just being an asshole to a 15-year-old. Anyway, I hope this video was informative or entertaining, ideally both. If for whatever reason you like hearing me speak, I co-host a gaming live stream with my boyfriend on twitch.tv/lifellol, and I will have all my social media as well as information for my art and fursuit commissions in the description below. If things go according to plan, this should release before Halloween. So if it did, where are you going as? If I was too late, what did you go as? I dressed as Spirit 2.0. I just had to show her off a little. With all that said, happy Halloween, y'all. Bye bye!